Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention. I'm Karen Freeland, your guide to ditching corporate and designing a life you love. If you're ready to shift your mindset, boost your confidence, and finally take action on that dream career or business, you're in the right place. It's your time. Let's rock your reinvention. I am so excited about today's guest because we have another great corporate exit story for you. Brittany Martin is a former HR executive who ditched the golden handcuffs to start her own business. Now she's the founder of Be Kind Works, where she's on a mission to enrich workplace culture and drive meaningful impact through the power of kindness. And don't we all need a little bit more of that in our lives, especially after some of the cutthroat work environments we've been in? Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Now, before we get into your corporate exit story, can you just take us back to that moment when you realized you weren't happy in your corporate career? Because I know you had reached the top, but tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life or your work that make you just think, you know what, this can't be it.
Sure. I had just moved back to New York after living all across the country for 10 years prior to that. And I remember sitting on the lawn at my parents' house having a conversation with my mom. It was a weekend day. It was beautiful out. And I was living the life that I had always dreamt that I would live. I was in this influential leadership role. I had a big paycheck, fancy apartment in New York City. And I must have just had this look on my face. And my mom turned to me and said, "Why aren't you content?" And I was like, I don't really know the meaning of the word. And for a long time, I was okay with not knowing what that meant. And for some reason, I just remember realizing that I really heard her. Yeah. And in the past, I had viewed contentment as complacency or lack of ambition. And what I realized was contentment is a gift. And you can have aspirations and be content and enjoy the life that you're living. And in that conversation, I remember promising my mom that I would enjoy my success. I would embrace the life that I was living in the moment and just let the new dream, the new aspirations for me unfold. And so it was then that I started to pay attention to, well, what is bringing me joy? And what are the things that are not bringing me joy? So that was when I really started to be more discerning in the things that I was choosing to do, the way I was spending my time. And I started being more curious about myself.
I love that you talk about contentment because that was kind of like a dirty word for me too. Like content, no. I used to always look at my husband and it would frustrate the crap out of me because I'm like, how are you so content with this life? What about this that makes you feel so fulfilled and happy? Because I was obviously lacking in so many areas, only focusing on work and all of that. And now I'm at a point in my life where, like you, I've changed my relationship with the word contentment, and it's actually like my best friend.
Yeah, it's amazing. Once you discover that it can help you feel like a whole person and it doesn't limit anything, it becomes a wonderful word.
Oh, so cool. Okay, well, you shared with me that it actually took you 3 years to leave that corporate job, and you ultimately made that happen by getting yourself laid off. I got to know more about this. So can you walk us through that process and how you finally had the courage to make the leap?
Sure. So it took about 3 years from that conversation with my mom to actually leave. And I think about it in terms of I got myself laid off because there's a lot of power in how we claim our words and choose to frame things. And I've taken a lot of confidence from the fact that I always took my career opportunities as something that I was goal-oriented towards. And in order to get that next promotion or the next opportunity, I needed to prepare the team that I was leaving behind for me to move on. And throughout my corporate career, I was told time and time again who was going to be your backfill or we can't let you go because no one else is going to do what you did. And I flipped it from these are things that are holding me back to, well, what can I control about that? And so the way that I got promotions and opportunities throughout my corporate career was developing the people around me and working myself out of jobs. And I loved that because I thought with abundance instead of scarcity. And I was like, well, if I do this great work, then people behind me will succeed. And then the next opportunity will present itself. And so that's how I treated the role that I was in right before I left, was I was working myself out of a job. And the expectations of me were to develop my business unit to be able to grow and embed it into the bigger corporate organization. And so as I did that, the same time it was unfolding of, well, what do I want that next step to be? Mm-hmm. And as an HR leader, I knew that your business leaders, your HR leaders are looking to you to say, what is that next role you're ready for? What is that next thing you want to do? What's that next opportunity you're striving for? And in the past, I had been very clear with my company as to what those things were. And in this role, I didn't want that next step. I didn't want that lateral development opportunity or that promotion. And so it's not that I became disengaged. I still took a ton of responsibility for my team and accountability for my results. And yet I wasn't positioning myself in a place of, I'm eager to take on this next opportunity. I'm enthusiastic about being here. And as changes started to happen, the person that was reporting to me, she was more than capable of taking over my responsibilities. And through all the organizational changes that many of us have experienced, there were layoffs that were coming. And I was one of the people that was exited. And it did hurt. And it came a little bit sooner than exactly the timing that I wanted it to play out. But it was a gift. Instead of me voluntarily having to exit, or instead of me fighting the fact that I was trying to be a square peg in a round hole and stay and be a part of this, I got myself laid off. And it was a gift for a few months as I figured out what exactly I wanted to start. And that's how Be Kind Works came to me. So it was really about preparing the people around me to be successful without me. Mm-hmm. We have already done a lot of this soul searching and work to be prepared for a change, and then embracing the change when it happened.
Yeah, I love that mindset shift where you actually see the layoff as a gift. And I see so many of my clients feel guilty about getting themselves laid off, right? They feel guilty about just doing the bare minimum, doing what it takes to just still show up and deliver on your tasks, but not going to the nth degree and killing yourself and working 24/7. And so did you have to deal with any of those feelings of guilt as you were going through that? And if so, how did you navigate it?
I did. Being in the position I was in, I helped a lot of other leaders navigate through that themselves. And as a HR leader, people leader, I always tried to take the advice I was giving to others. Yeah. And a lot of that came to acknowledging, like, what is the story I'm telling myself about this? Is it a personal judgment of me and my performance that I'm not getting this role or this job, versus what's the job to be done? Yeah. And being able to separate those things helped me to alleviate some of that guilt or the personal feelings I was having about that. And it's much easier said than done. And then the other thing was having already been preparing for, I'm going to step into a change, whether that's a new role with this company or the company is going to change or I'm going to leave. Being in that mindset of change is the only constant also helped me to alleviate some of that guilt or stress, because there was a contract, right? Like, there's just this unspoken agreement between I'm doing this job and there's the job to be done and I'm doing that. But then it's also, what do you want? Because you can only control how you're feeling and the career choices that you make.
Oh, that's so true. Like, and you said it earlier too, you had to focus on what you could control. And so many times we give our power away because we're trying to control things that we have no business controlling, you know? So leaving a six-figure job isn't something obviously you can do overnight. I mean, you just shared that it took you 3 years. So what were some of the most important steps that you took? And I would love to hear, especially financially, to set yourself up for that success when you left, AKA got laid off.
So the first thing that was really hard for me was getting my support system on board with the idea that I was going to leave and that I wanted to take this chance and I wanted to do something bold and different, because that took a lot of time. That took 3 to 5 years, I would say, to get the people in my world on board with the idea that I was going to walk away from something that appeared to be very stable and secure and what was seen as success. And the reason that took time was because I wanted to bring this support system along with me. And sometimes we outgrow people, other times they grow with us. And we have a responsibility to help people to understand us as we're growing and evolving. So that took a lot of time, a lot of conversations and curiosity from the people that I respected, mentors that I had developed over the years. And that then opened up tons of doors and opportunities. So that was one thing that I did in those 3 years that really helped me to feel like I wasn't alone in making the change. And then the other thing was financially setting myself up and always living within my means. And when I say that, I think about it because a lot of us have variable compensation or bonuses or things that are a part of our pay. And we think about it that way, or we talk about it that way. And we say, this is how much money I make. And yet that is variable. It is not something to be guaranteed, whether it's a cost of living adjustment or a transition allowance or whatever it might be. These things are bonuses and add-ons. And so I saved that. And I looked at that money as, you know what, this isn't something I can always count on. And that gave me this safety net that I then helped to determine for myself, what's my runway? How long do I have if I need to live off of this? And I go work somewhere else, but I take a few months off and do a sabbatical, or I want to, I don't know, write a book or go travel or do whatever. Or I want to start my own company. What was that runway? And so for me, it was about 2 years. And I also wanted to protect that savings. So I wasn't going to dump into that or tap into that and say, I'm going to use this money for this or for that. Like, it was protected for me to live for 2 years and not draw an income, so I could let the money in my company grow. I could let the business build a solid foundation. And then when I started the company, it's all for me been about focusing on my craft and valuing my work and my experience and pricing things at a place where I actually feel good about it. And building that positive relationship with money and talking about it and not being like, oh, weird, you want to talk about finances? Or like, I'm embarrassed about it. We needed to start to shift that mindset for me and my support system. And then just the way that I'm comfortable talking about things. And it's still tricky, but you get better and better at it as you go. So those are some of the really critical things I did.
Yeah. And I love that. And you said something earlier about getting the support system on board for walking away from this thing. And so one of the things I've encouraged, my clients to think about is that, what are we walking towards? Because so often we sort of like, oh, I'm walking away from this paycheck. I'm walking away from this lifestyle. But what are we going towards? And it might be a much better lifestyle. You might even make more money now that you've cut out the middleman, You have so much more flexibility and time and freedom. And so that, I think, is always helpful to kind of have your eye on the prize.
Definitely.
And I think too, I love how you were intentional with your money. And when we have goals and we've set out our goals, then we can be so much more intentional with our money because we know what our options are. I can splurge on a vacation or a fancy purse, or I can put this money away so that I can leave my corporate job and go start my business. And sometimes you might decide to go on the vacation. It's not like you can't have any fun, but at least we're making that decision knowing all the options.
Yes, there's a lot of power in owning that it's your decision. We have choices. And we're not victim to, oh, this paycheck that I'm earning. So once you're able to shift into that, I'm making these decisions, you really start to feel more empowered of, well, this is what I'm going to then choose to do.
Yeah. And just a quick question on support system, because you've said this kind of, the people in your
Mhm.
support system a couple times. So was that like friends or family, a partner? Like who makes up your support system?
Yeah, so it's different today than it was then. I think that it's always evolving. What I've realized is no one person can be everything for you, just like no one job can be everything for you. For me, my support system are my parents and my sister, and my brother in law, and my niece and nephew. And it's funny that I say my young niece and nephew are like toddlers, and yet they're part of my support system, but they ground me into why I do what I do. And my support system is now my fiance, who I had just started dating when I got laid off. And at the time, I was like, okay, like I need to trust in being vulnerable here with this person. And my support system are the people that I've worked with for the last decade plus, and people that I built authentic relationships with that I could reach out to and just get a sense from them of what they thought I could be doing or should be doing. And then there are people that were mentors of mine that then introduced me to other incredible people. And Hillary Bilbrey, who's been on your podcast before, she has been an incredible source of support for me and a mentor and a guide in just helping me to feel seen and letting me be my authentic self and inviting me to explore what that looks like. And so it's grown, I would say, my support system. My world got a lot bigger once I started inviting people into it and showing up and looking for those folks like friends or family or whoever it might be that I wanted to share this new phase of my life with.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Because I think sometimes we just use phrases that we know what they mean, but like, what does
Yeah.
that really encompass? So it's always helpful to get a little glimpse into that. We've got to talk about your company name really quick. I love it. Be Kind Works. How did you come up with this name? And what does kindness in the workplace mean to you on a practical level?
So it took me a while to come up with the name. After I had settled on starting my own HR leadership, I wasn't really sure what my company was going to do at the time. And the thing that I realized was that for me, it was very important to have a guiding focus for the way that I wanted to show up in my business. I really channeled the virtue of detachment and being, I'm Brittany, and Be Kind Works and my business are two different things, even though they are related. And there is an overlap there. But I wanted to name the company something that would give me a guide to how I wanted to show up, how I wanted everyone that I work with to be seen and to really strive to have this purpose. And it's about enriching workplaces with the power of kindness. And to me, that's being yourself and being considerate and being compassionate. And it's about people and performance. It's not about overcorrecting and being too nice or overcorrecting and being too tough, but it's about being transparent in a way that you're authentic and you're real and you're considering the impact on the business and other people. So Be Kind Works is something that helps me to think about how we show up in the workplace matters just as much as what you're doing.
Yeah. And I love that you talk about not being the same thing as your business. Like your business is not your identity, right? You are Brittany Martin, and then you own a business called Be Kinds Works. And that is there, yes, some overlap, but it's not the same thing, right? Because let's be real, businesses have great seasons and they have tough seasons, at
Yeah.
least any business I've ever been a part of. And so if we do look at our business as like such a big piece of our identity, I think we get really tough on ourselves.
We do. And if we're trying to leave corporate or reinvent ourselves, then why are we falling into the same traps that we once were in? And so it was really important to me to make that distinction and yet have it also be something I was really proud of.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. And I mean, you're right. Like, if we're going to reinvent, this is the opportunity to do things differently.
Yeah.
Let's seize it. Let's take advantage of it. Okay, so you're a business owner now, which I know many listening are aspiring to be. So, what practices or mindset shifts have helped you find more balance as an entrepreneur? I know you were a big overachiever when you were in corporate. That was something that you shared with me on our pre-call. So, maybe just talk to me about how you've been able to keep that in check and, the types of mindset shifts you've had to make.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been more of a mindset shift in my life and less of a mindset shift when it comes to work, because I was always really proud of how I worked and what I was able to accomplish. And those were a lot of the things I wanted to bring with me into the work that I'm doing. And as an HR business partner or people business partner, I cared about people and the business and was curious and wore all the different hats. And as an entrepreneur, you do the same thing. So whether it's the finance hat or the commercial hat or the execution hat, you have to do all of that in entrepreneurship. And so I've embraced both of those things and carried a lot with me. I think some of the things that I've really made sure to maintain are having a practice of pause and being able to make sure that I'm staying grounded and reflective on, is this in alignment with the life that I want to live? So that's been really important for me. And then that mindset of abundance, I would say, is something that is really important to keep in mind as I'm trying to build something, because it can be intimidating when you're trying to break into different markets or meet different people. And I'm not trying to compete against anyone else. I think that there's plenty of work to go around, and there's so much that can be done if we work together and collaboratively. And so I look at it as what could be the opportunity. And that abundance mindset and the mindset of pause have really been helpful for me in starting this.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I think now that I've been doing this for so long, like I don't think about how important an abundance mindset is. I remember one of my coaches very early on when I started my business, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to go get my special juices and fruit smoothies, that cost like $9 a pop or whatever. And she was like, that's exactly the wrong thinking. Like, go get yourself the juice, right? Like, think that it's coming, the money's coming, the clients are coming. And when I started to think that way and still be responsible, right, at
Yeah.
the same time, it really shifted things for me. And I was like, wow. And the money always did show up and the clients always did show up. And I was like, I have enough. This really works.
Yeah. And there's enough to share too. And I think that the more you think with that mindset, the more you attract people that also are trying to make similar changes or impacts in the world around you. And that fuels your energy. At least for me, I found that. And that's exciting. I don't want to close off opportunities because I'm thinking with rigidity, or those are some of the things I tried to break away from and what could be possible. So it's amazing when you see what could be out there.
It's so fun. I'm so excited now. I hope I get to be one of your people in your support system because I really can't wait to watch you just flourish and soar.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been such a joy.
Yeah. So, final question. If you could say one thing to the woman listening who knows she wants to leave her corporate job, but her fears and her doubts are holding her back, what would you say?
I think I'll echo something you said earlier of what are you running to? Right? We need to be running towards something instead of running away from something. And often if we're running away from something, that those are a bunch of clues. Pay attention to what those clues are and what are the things that you don't want or aren't bringing you that joy or that energy. And then start to figure out what is it that will. And then how do you embed that into this practice of pause or your mindset or whatever it might be, because then you're running towards something. And that's what's going to help sustain you through the challenges, and you'll find the right people to surround yourself with. But you need to know where you're headed. And often that's from within. It's not something that's external.
Thank you. I'm going to send this to one of my clients, but I was literally talking to one of my clients about that today. And she's like, I keep taking career assessments and personality tests. And she's looking everywhere out externally for the answers. And I'm like, no, we've got it backwards. I'm like, the answer's inside. There's something in there and it's probably been hidden for decades and you just haven't unearthed it yet, because that's where your hopes and your dreams and your purpose and all of that is implanted, I believe, by our creator. So it can't be out there. It has to be inside.
Yeah. And sometimes other people might mirror it back to you or help you to see things inside, but it's when it feels easy. It's when it feels like, oh, that's obvious to me. That's not obvious to everyone else.
Yeah.
So pay attention to those little things, and then that will help to make that running towards versus running away list a little bit bigger.
Brilliantly said. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom with us. This has been exceeded my expectations. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad. This was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. If you want more accountability and support, I've got your back. Book a complimentary Empowered Exit Strategy call today. Visit KarenFreeland.com to learn more and book your 45-minute session. Until next time, stay fabulous.